How do you astutely figure out who are those right people where you can really invest in, really get them to be part of the journey and not compromising on that from day one?
Welcome everyone to UpTech Report. This is our Founder's Journey series. I'm joined by my guest, Rajesh Kalidindi, who's based in Austin, Texas. He's the CEO and founder of LevaData. This is part 2. Definitely go back and listen to part 1, where we learned about the cognitive supply management platform that they've built for the past 6 years, which is really in the supply chain, procurement, and purchasing operations area. If you're involved in any of those, this is a platform you want to look at. But I'm excited to hear a bit more about your journey. Tell me, what's your story in a short amount of time? How did you get to where you are today?
Absolutely. So when prior to starting LevaData, I worked at a really large Fortune 500 networking company. And it was interesting times where I was managing a fair amount of spend. And I constantly saw that we were suffering from the same problem, even though we had an excellent team, even though we had access to lots of internal tools and technologies, we were leaving money on the table. So there was an instance where a GM of a specific business unit with $1 billion worth of spend asked for help to improve his gross margin by reducing costs. And I basically looked at it as, look, we cannot do this traditionally. Let's go try to do a data-driven approach, get data from multiple sets of sources, whether it's external or internal, put that together and essentially go in for the negotiations and drive for the best value from those insights. That was a huge success. What we were doing at 8% per year, we got a 14% reduction. That was $60 million incremental to the bottom line with that approach. And that's when the wheels started turning in my head that here's a company that's so successful and has great team, et cetera. But think about all those companies who are not at that level and who have this opportunity would be larger. And how do I build this capability, not as a brute force approach over a 3-month period, but build a system and a company around it that can do this, as not just teaching as from a cliche standpoint, providing a fish, but teaching them how to fish, right? So how do you do this again and again repeatedly? That's where LevaData was born. The name that LevaData is about is leveraging data. And that's the core principle about our company. And that's how LevaData was born.
I love it. And this previous organization I see on your LinkedIn is Cisco. So having that knowledge of what your experience there definitely leads into where you are now. 6 years that you've coming up on 7, you said next year. If you could know one thing that you know now, 7 years ago, what would you say to yourself? What would you wish you had known then?
Well, even though I have managed a lot of people during my career at Cisco and other companies, what I realized is when you're in a startup world, when you're building something from the ground up, it takes a different breed of people, right? And so people make companies, people make the world, right? So it's how do you astutely figure out who are those right people where you can really invest in, really get them to be part of the journey and not compromising on that from day one, right? Whatever the challenge in front of you, but not compromising of the type of people who join your company and who grow with your company and drive impact. That would be my biggest learning.
You've led many teams, you stated. This is your first company that you founded. Did I get that correct? Okay. When it comes to funding, did you self-fund? Did you get VC funding? And what was that process like?
So I was very fortunate that there were a few people who funded us out the get-go because they were, people that really understood, believed, and trusted in me. So we started with seed capital very quickly out the gate. After about 2 years, bootstrapping plus getting seed funding, we went in for Series A, followed, 2 years later, we did Series B. And right now, we in the next year, we expect to go in for the next round. So it's been a very interesting journey over the years and thankful to the investors that helped us in the journey.
What would you say is the biggest mistake one could make when seeking funding?
Well, I think you have to be ready for funding. So it's you want to get to a certain place where you've got enough momentum, you've got enough of a feedback from the market that you can convince investors, because sooner or later, if you've not done your homework or gotten enough traction, you have to pay the piper. And so it's important that you get some level of traction and before you even get to funding.
What is a good indicator as far as the product itself that you know that A, it's a good place to be able to get more funding, or B, it's in the right place to market and give it to your customers? How do you know when it's right?
I think a big piece around this always is feedback from customers. So when you have a concept, first of all, even before I left my last company, I basically had talked to about 40 different procurement leaders in my network of different companies. And I pitched the concept, I pitched the problem I'm trying to solve. And then when you hear everyone say, and everyone said, I faced that problem today, and that concept sounds interesting. And two of them basically said, I'll buy it if you make it. And they bought it. So when I made it, so that again is a big gratification from the customer more than anything else, whether they see that it's solving a problem that needs to be solved, and secondly, are they going to pay for it?
You mentioned earlier as what you would wish you had known is when it comes to the people, to be able to build the right company, to be able to service said customers and build the right product, building the right team. It changes as you grow. What would you say is maybe the common mistakes one could make, or maybe lessons learned to when you are hiring the right person? What do you look for to build that right culture and team?
I think there are a lot of people with strong skill sets and capabilities and experiences when you look at them. But I think the number one thing that you have to really look for is the ability to be adaptable as well as resilient, because you're going to go through a roller coaster. You're going to be faced with so many turns and forks on the road. And the way you kind of manage, adapt, and drive resiliency is going to be the key to success.
Just because you have a lot of skill set and experience in a previous job doesn't mean you'll qualify in a startup and be able to grow and you'll be the right team member.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Now, obviously that your company changes as you grow. How many employees are now part of the team?
Our team is about 80 employees at LevaData today.
Okay. This, as you grow, what do you see, especially going into this environment we're in? You guys are already distributed, but you have a headquarters.
Yeah, that's right.
How do you keep the team together and focused on the trajectory and where you're headed?
I think it all boils down to a few things, right? One is having a strong vision and mutually agreeing together on the elements of the strategy and the detailed execution plans, right? And then once you have that in place and everybody understands what the key things are to be focused on, it's about empowerment and driving accountability. That's in essence what it is. So in again, if you want to thrive in this environment, you got to drive that empowerment and the accountability and let the teams really flourish associated with that. Collaboration becomes super important in a distributed environment. And we all know we've all switched to Zoom at this point. And so we're finding ways in which we have frequent touch points like many of us, folks out there. But that becomes very important, and trying to keep the personal piece as well, which, you can't do the face-to-face thing, the lunches and the dinners, et cetera, but figuring out how you still augment that and try to still thrive in the current environment is crucial.
What do you see as the next big focus or challenge that you're going to need to overcome in your phase of growth of where you're headed?
I think a big piece at our size is as we start expanding to different markets, right? As we want to go international, as we look at different verticals, trying to scale across, build a scale associated with it, driving the right investments in the right order, and also figuring out how we leverage partnerships to help accelerate that faster than trying to do it ourselves, right? That's the set of things that is in front of us right now, and we're actively working those elements. We do have international presence with a few accounts, but we definitely want to expand that capability and that penetration as well.
What kind of tech innovations do you predict we'll see in the near term, the next year or so, and long term, 5, 10 years?
I think in the shorter term, the technology that we already have, I think, is far ahead of the application of that technology, right? And so I almost think about the now is focusing on leveraging the existing technology to drive more deeper and impactful value for customers that we have. So if you have machine learning technology, it's been there for a while, but in the supply chain context, in the procurement context, how do you focus it on use cases that are truly valuable and needle movers, in terms of solving the problems, and invest in that rather than doing something a little bit faster or a little bit more precise associated with it. And so that's our focus in the short term. And in the longer term, I think, as you continue to expand and the reach of AI and cognitive capabilities, there is a real option to go from, what we say today is augmented, for example, negotiations. Imagine the power of getting to the next level, which is assisted negotiation, just like a car, right? And then you go to autonomous negotiation, right? And so those are the areas that we are investing in, and it takes data, lots of data. It takes usage as well, so you can learn from it. And then the technology that can observe patterns and react and do the game theories and go manage those. So I'm pretty excited about that path that we're pursuing over the next several years as well.
I love the connection piece because everyone is looking at and paying attention to self-driving cars, and from augmented to assisted to now full self-driving, but applying that to other areas in the business world of saying, going just from augmenting to assisting to completely managing it. That's the trajectory. Some may take a little bit longer, but I love the future that you paint, and for this insight that you have gathered over the years. I appreciate just a tidbit that you could share in here. For everyone, definitely check out our part 1 of our interview that we were able to hear a bit more about the cognitive supply management platform that Rajesh has built. And you can also go to LevaData.com to get a more insight and a demo from them. Thanks again, Rajesh, for joining us. It was good to have you on. Thank
you very much, and have a great day.
Again, everyone, check out uptechreport.com to see the full episode. And our sponsor for today's episode is TerraLeap. If your company wants to learn how to better leverage the power of video to increase your sales and marketing results, head over to terraleap.io. We'll see you guys next time. Have you seen a company using AI, machine learning, or other technology to transform the way we live, work, and do business? Go to uptechreport.com and let us know.